My name is Clara Wells, and I am 17 years old. I live in Quincy, Massachusetts, a quiet town with tree-lined streets and schools filled with the typical adolescent drama that characterizes high school. At first glance, I seem like any other teenager. I go to class, hang out with friends, and try to navigate the complexities of youth. However, unlike many of my peers, I carry a burden, a heavy weight that has been etched into my life not by my own choices, but by the cruelty of my older sister, Miranda. She is 3 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, she has been the embodiment of everything toxic in my world. While most siblings bicker over petty issues like who gets the last slice of pizza or who controls the TV remote, our fights spiraled into something dark and vicious. Miranda took every ounce of anger she felt towards our absent father and turned it on me. I learned early on that laughter and happiness were met with her contempt. If I dared to smile even a little, she would find a way to stomp on my joy, mocking my achievements and belittling my aspirations. The emotional and verbal abuse morphed into physical threats that loomed heavy over my teenage life. I can recall one evening when I was playing fetch with our family dog, Buddy. Miranda ripped him from my arms, glaring at me as if I had committed the worst offense known to humankind. I stood there, heartbroken, while she hurled insults at me, declaring I was unworthy of such love. That was just one of many incidents that highlighted a pattern of torment, the kind that leaves scars invisible to the outside world. Despite the anguish, I adapted. I learned how to protect myself, at least verbally, and found strategies to deflect her rage. I never succeeded in changing her behavior, but I grew weary of being a punching bag. I observed how Miranda thrived on the emotional turmoil she created. It became clear to me that all I could do was bide my time and wait for an opportunity to turn the tables. Little did I know I was about to find the perfect chance. When I turned 12, I experienced a particularly nasty week filled with Miranda's outbursts. I remember feeling as if I was trapped in a storm, her anger whipping around me like the wind. She was scheduled to attend a country music concert with her friends that upcoming weekend, and I sensed something primal in me start to stir. The idea of revenge seemed far-fetched but tantalizingly possible. If I could pull off a plan that would leave her humiliated and writhing in discomfort, it could provide a moment of satisfaction that I desperately craved. As the week progressed, her insults only worsened. Each time she screamed at me, I would retreat to my room, feigning tears and outrage. She took great pleasure in my distress, often stomping downstairs to relax in front of the television, leaving me with an unsettling mix of fury and glee. She had no idea I was plotting something sinister. In the quiet of my room, I hatched a devious plan that would turn her own emotions against her. I began by acquiring a wasp trap solution, the type that is supposed to lure in and immobilize its victims. I waited until she was out for the day and snuck it into the Jack and Jill bathroom we shared. A mere tablespoon, carefully placed with precision between her shampoo and conditioner, it felt like drawing the first line in a thrilling game of revenge chess. Each time she triggered my emotions, I felt empowered. This was my way to take control back. As the week wore on, Miranda's volatility escalated. By Friday, her temper was peaking. That evening, in one of her typical fits of rage, she threatened to stab me, an outrageous escalation that flipped a switch inside me. I could no longer hold back. I added another ingredient to my plan, an element that would take my revenge to unprecedented levels. I retrieved a small plastic bottle I had hidden in the back of my closet, filled with urine. I had debated using this additional measure from the beginning, finally deciding this would be the final nail in her coffin. I had not intended to escalate the situation this much. I had planned to keep things simple with just the wasp trap. However, after that near-fatal threat against my life, nothing felt off the table. I left the urine bottle in the sun to ferment during the day, developing an odor that could turn even the most robust stomach. Her concert was all set, and the timing could not have been more perfect. I waited in anticipation as she rushed to get ready, her excitement oblivious to the alarm bells ringing in my mind. She was late, so I could only hope she would not notice the subtle changes in her shampoo. With cheap perfume masking anything foul, I prayed she would not take the time to inspect her hair products. Miranda would be in for a rude awakening. At last, she hopped into the shower, blissfully unaware of my plot, ready to use the products I had tainted. After her shower, excited for a night of fun with her friends, she rushed out the door. I could hardly contain my delight and I replaced the contaminated bottles with diluted floury soap and water, erasing any traces of my treachery. I sat on my bed, giddy with the thought of what was to come. When Miranda returned home that night, I could hardly contain my excitement. She stormed through the door, her face flushed with fury. Buzzing noises filled the air around her as she complained about being attacked by wasps all night long at the concert. In fact, she was convinced something was wrong with her. Her friends had been snickering and whispering behind her back, sharing looks of disgust. She stumbled into her bedroom, wailing fearfully about sickening smells and how her social life was ruined. It was glorious. As the days passed, I basked in the brilliant aftermath of my plan. Miranda was so distraught that she barely had the energy to lash out at me. For 2 solid weeks, I watched as she wrangled with the consequences of my actions, my heart swelling with a sense of schadenfreude. That was the only time I had enacted a revenge fantasy. My joy was palpable, a victory that felt as rich as bittersweet chocolate. However, not all was smooth sailing. I began to notice a shift in our household. My parents were concerned about what had happened to Miranda. My mother, in a fit of compassion, organized family discussions so we could all move on and heal. She could not see the truth, that it was the relief of stress, the release of years of pent-up frustration that I had finally experienced. Even though Miranda's newfound silence was golden, it raised questions at the dinner table. Sure, the attacks had lessened, but my parents were on alert. It was as if a delicate truce had settled over our home, muted and fraught with tension. I absorbed this grim realization as I sat at the table, the air thick with unspoken emotions. I was consumed with feelings of guilt. I had acted in revenge, but it seemed to have created a hole in our family I had never meant to cause. Days turned to weeks, and I tried to reclaim my life. I immersed myself in schoolwork and spent time with friends. I signed up for art classes, letting my creativity flow and quell my thoughts. However, I could never shake the feeling that soon enough, Miranda would reemerge from her shadows, seeking a reckoning for what I had done to her. The thought gnawed at my insides, an impending storm brewing on the horizon of our chaos. But the longer she stayed silent, the more I convinced myself I had gotten away with it. I began to foster a sense of pride in my actions. It was a secret badge of honor that celebrated the victory of resilience over oppression. As I engaged with friends and immersed myself in school projects, I could not help but smile at the bittersweet flavors of revenge, trusting that my moment of confrontation would remain in the past. Then came that fateful day when everything changed. I was finishing homework one afternoon when I heard a scream that pierced the quiet of our house. It originated from Miranda's room, high-pitched and laced with agony. I dropped my pencil and rushed toward the sound with my heart racing. As I swung open her bedroom door, I found her standing there, clutching a piece of paper. "Did you do this?" she cried, the accusation heavy in the air. My breath caught in my throat as I scanned the room. No, it could not be possible. In her trembling hand was evidence of my crime, a frantic note from her friend, warning her that people were discussing her smell and a gnarly section of social media teeming with mockery. All the relief I felt over the past weeks turned to dread in an instant. I thought my revenge had settled the score, but instead I had ignited a much larger conflict. "What are you talking about?" I feigned innocence, even though my heart raced. Miranda charged at me, and I barely stepped aside as she slammed her door shut, leaving me stunned. I stood there, frozen, all the pride from revenge dissipating like a smoke ring in the air. I had wanted payback, but this was deepening my sister's emotional turmoil, and now it felt as though I had dug my own grave. I knew I would have to confront her eventually. I could not let this fester. So, steeling myself for the confrontation, I began pacing the hallway, rehearsing every word in my mind, repeating them like a mantra. However, as the night crept closer, I worried that the moment was escaping me. It was time for clarity. I gathered myself mentally and knocked on her door. "Miranda, can we please talk?" I called softly, hoping to not provoke her more. "What do you want?" she snapped from the other side. "I want to explain, and I want you to listen. What I did to you was wrong, and I just wanted to protect myself," I shouted back, hoping my words would touch her heart even slightly. There was silence on the other side. I pressed my ear against the door but could only hear the sound of her breath. "Please, just open the door," I pleaded. Finally, the door creaked open a crack. Miranda stood there, tears glistening in her eyes. "You ruined my life," she whispered hoarsely, not quite meeting my gaze. "No, I didn't. I tried to retaliate because you've hurt me for so long," I confessed. "I wanted you to feel just a fraction of my pain, but I realize now that it didn't help anyone." Sorrow twisted in my chest as I spoke. "What do you expect me to say?" she retorted. Do you want an I forgive you? After everything, you crossed a line, Clara. And just like that, I felt the weight of my actions crashing down on me. In that moment, I realized the complexity of her pain mirrored my own. The years that had been marked by fear, hurt, and isolation were the very same ones I had tried to escape through revenge. As much as I wished to place blame on her, I could see something much darker, the cycle of hatred. Think about it, I said, my voice softening. We should be working together to heal. I do not want to keep hurting you. You have every right to be angry. Perhaps we should just talk more. For a moment, we exchanged heavy gazes through the tiny gap in the door until I saw her face soften ever so slightly. Something inside me flickered, hope mingling with the weight of regret. Maybe it wasn't too late for us to stop this cycle together. After that day, I took charge of our situation. I proposed family therapy, an outlet that would provide both of us a chance to express our feelings in healthy ways. To my surprise, Miranda agreed, albeit reluctantly, but it was a step towards breaking down the walls we had built for so long. It was not easy. Therapy sessions were fraught with grief and anger, revealing the roots of our dysfunction. We cried, yelled, and even learned more about one another's stories. It was a long and winding road, but slowly we began to chip away at the layers of resentment stacked between us. In truth, my experience taught me a crucial lesson. Revenge often unveils deeper scars and can perpetuate the cycles of hate. It challenged me to break free, not just for myself, but for the person I had spent many years resenting. Eventually, the humor of irony slipped in. Miranda, my nemesis, transformed into someone I could even call my friend as we found new ground upon which we could both stand. Our relationship was not flawless, and scars may never fully heal, but we shared a journey that reshaped my view of family dynamics and forgiveness. With the past scarred yet still vibrant, lessons lingered. The revenge that had once stirred my heart had morphed into a story of resilience, growth, and ultimately, the gift of second chances. I would carry those lessons with me long into my future, reminding me of all the ways we could not only hurt one another, but also heal.